So this review lesson is all about dividing with multi-digit divisors. Now we're not going to go into decimals or fractions or anything like that. This is just good old-fashioned dividing with integers. So among the many things that we need to remember about dividing, the most important things that we have are, one, there can be no decimal points remaining in the divisor. Here we're not going to worry about that too much, but that is one of the most important things. You shouldn't do a division where there are decimal points remaining in the divisor, and that division involves almost all of the other operations: addition, subtraction, and multiplication. And so it really is, even though it's related most closely to multiplication, division really puts together all of the skills from the other three basic operations, being addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and puts them all into one. So let's go ahead and do some example problems, and then there will be 4 practice problems at the end of the lesson for you to work through on your own. So here we have 516 divided by 12. Well, now, when we set this up, we have to make sure that we remember a few things. First, the 516 being the dividend goes inside what in elementary schools are often called division houses or something like that. And that 516 is being divided by the divisor, which is 12. And so unlike the other operations where we start with the smallest place value and move to the largest, in division we start with the largest place value and move down to the smallest. And so we start with 5 in the 500s. Now 12 goes into 500, but 12 doesn't go into the digit 5. So we can't divide 12 into 5, so we move on to the next combo, which is 5 and 1, which is 51. 12 goes into 51 4 times, because 4 times 12 is 48. If we subtract that out, we have 3 remaining. Now, it's important that our remainder down in this point isn't greater than our divisor itself. If it is greater than the divisor, then it means we could have chosen a greater number here that would also have 12 go into 51. As it is, the remainder is 3, which means 4 is our appropriate number. We always want this remainder to be less than the divisor. So now we have a remainder of 3 tens. We'll drop down the 1s because now we're looking at 36, and 12 goes into 36 3 times. 36 minus 36 is 0, and so now we're done. We have no more interesting digits in the dividend. In fact, we've hit the decimal point, and there are no other whole place digits, and we have a 0 as a remainder, so we can just stop. So that means that our quotient is 43. Now, none of the divisions that we do here will end up with long repeating decimals. We may go into a decimal place here and there, but there will be no long repeating decimals for what's going on. We'll talk about that at another point during the year. So let's look at 2 more example problems now. 6,720. We're going to divide that by 30. 30 goes into 67 twice. 30 times 2 is 60. Subtract that and get 72. Goes into 72 twice. 30 times 2 is 60. Subtract that out, get 12, which is great because 12 is less than 30. Drop the 0, and now 30 goes into 120 4 times. 30 times 4 is 120, so we end up with no places remaining, and our quotient is 224. Now for 8,062. Set up our division here. 8,062 is the dividend. 25 is the divisor. 25 goes into 80 3 times. And we can count with 25s. I like 25s because we can count with them like quarters. 3 times 25 is 75. Take that away, and we end up with 5 remaining. 25 goes into 56 twice. 25 times 2 is 50. 56 minus 50 is 6. Drop the 2. Goes into 62 twice also. And now I'm going to subtract out that 50 again. We'll go down here. And 12, let's make this entire thing a bit smaller so that we can continue working. And now we're not quite done yet, though, as we're making this smaller, because we still haven't reached a quotient. We have 12 remaining. So what we do in this case, because we don't want remainders here, we want to continue in decimal division, is that we add, well, we don't really add our decimal point. It's been there the entire time. And notice that the tens is a 0. So add our decimal point in the divisor, or rather in the quotient, drop the 0, and keep going. 25 goes into 124 times. Becomes 20. Again, still not done, so find a 0 and drop it. 225 times 8 is 200. I won't write the subtraction down there, but now we've got 322.48 as our quotient. Last two example problems here. We have 14.641 divided by 121. Here, the decimal point is in our dividend, but not in our divisor, so we're okay with that. Add the decimal point there. 121 goes into 146 once. Gives us 2 and a 5, so let's drop the 4. Goes into 254 twice as 242. Subtract that, get a 1 and 2. So we have 121 when we drop that 1, and now 121 goes into itself once. So our quotient is 121 thousandths, or just 0.121. Now for 615.6 divided by 19. 19 goes into 61 3 times, as 19 times 3 is 57. Subtract that out. Make that for 5. 19 goes into 45 twice, because 19 times 2 is 38. And now when we subtract this out, we have to borrow, so this becomes 76. And 19 times 4 is actually 76. So here we have our answer with the digits 3, 2, 4, but now we have to put our decimal point in the right place, and it's just between the appropriate digits in the quotient. So our quotient is 32.4. So now let's go through. You have 4 example problems. Go ahead, pause the video, work on this, see what you can get, and then come back when you're ready to go through the answers and move on to the next one. So 689 divided by 20. We're going to go through these fairly quickly. 20 goes into 60 3 times, because 20 times 3 is 60. So it becomes an 8 and a 9. Goes into 89 4 times, because 4 times 20 is 80. Comes a 9. Add the decimal point, drop the 0. Goes into 90 again 4 times, because 20 times 4 is 80. And now we have 100 left, and 20 goes into 100 5 times. So our quotient is 34.45. Now for 4,767 divided by 12. 12 goes into 47 3 times. Take 36 out, and you get 11. So now we have 116. Drop the 6. 12 goes into 116 9 times. 9 times 12 is 108. That difference is 87. 12 goes into 87 7 times, as 7 times 12 is 84. The 3, 0. Now we have 30. 12 goes into, 12 goes into 30 twice, as it's 24. And remainder is 6. Drop another 0. 12 goes into 65 times, because 12 times 5 is 60. So our quotient is 397.25, or 397 and 25 hundredths. Now for the final 2 problems, go ahead, pause the video, go through them, and come back when you are ready to go through the answers in the process at the end. So here we have 42.084 divided by 16. 16 goes into 42 twice. 16 times 2 is 32. Becomes 100. 16, now we add the decimal point, because that's where the decimal point is in the the dividend. 16 goes into 100 6 times. 16 times 6 is 96. Okay, that out, get 48. Goes into that 3 times, because 16 times 3 is actually 48. Comes to 0. Now we drop the 4, because we still have the 4, so we have to continue. 16 doesn't go into 4, so we add a 0. Drop another 0. And now 16 goes into 40 twice with 32. Goes into 80 4 times. No, 5 times actually. Just plain 5 times, as 16 times 5 is 80. So 2.63025, that is our quotient. Finally, 0.04087 divided by 8. Add a decimal point, doesn't go into 0, doesn't go into 4, goes into 45 times, as 8 times 5 is 40. Now we have an 8. 8 goes into itself once. have a 7, doesn't go into 7, but now we drop another 0 for 70. 8 goes into 78 times, because that is 64. 70 minus 64 is 6. 8 goes into 67 times. 8 times 7 is 56. And 8 goes into 45 times. 8 times 5 is 40. So our quotient is actually 0.00510,875. And if you wanted to go through and find the place value name for that, we have tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, 10 millions, 100 millions. So here we have 510,875 100 millions as our quotient. So as we said, the most important things we need to remember about division are that there can be no decimal points remaining in the divisor. The dividend is fine. We can have we can have decimal points in the dividend, and we can have as many decimal places as we want in the dividend. It's just the divisor we can't have decimal points in. And the division involves almost all of the other operations at some point: multiplication, subtraction, and addition.